Good afternoon, everybody. Happy to have you here with me in the locker room for an author's afternoon. I'm Alan Locher. I'm thrilled to introduce today's remarkable lineup of authors. We have Jeremy Murphy, whose witty and insightful book, Too Good to Fact Check, gives us a hilarious peek behind the scenes of celebrity culture. Also joining us is Sarah Cody, a seasoned travel reporter who takes us on an unforgettable journey through Connecticut's hidden treasures in her book, Around Every Corner of Connecticut. But first up, I'm excited to welcome Jolie Downs. Jolie is the inspiring author of Thriving After 40, a book born out of her popular podcast that offers a powerful guide to living an authentic and fulfilling life at any age. Jolie's work is a testament to the power of storytelling, drawing on the experiences of over 100 thriving individuals to uncover the universal truths that can help us all live our best lives. Please help me welcome to the locker room, Jolie Downs. Hi, Jolie.
Hi, Alan. Great to be here. Thank you for having me on.
You are so welcome. I'm excited to chat.
Me
So
too.
let's start. You're a partner and executive recruiter with Paradigm Staffing, a
Correct.
recruiting firm specializing in public relations marketing, where you have spent 20 years working with thousands of executives as they move up the corporate ranks. And in addition to that, you host 2 podcasts. Will you tell us about both podcasts?
Yes, I'd love to. Thriving After 40 was started during the pandemic. It was my attempt to do something to be helpful. How can I help during this time, if you will? And it started off with my intention was to kind of tackle the topic of ageism, if really, because I was seeing quite a bit of ageism happening in a variety of different industries. And what I was curious about is if you make it up the corporate ladder, if you make it up to that C level, how did you get there? How did you make it through all the challenges? And if you jumped off the corporate ladder and did something on your own and became successful, how did you do that? What happened? How did you get through those challenges? And what happened was I started talking to people about their stories, and it really became about thriving in life. It became about how do you make it through all of the different things in life and get yourself to a point where you feel like you are living your very best life. You wouldn't change anything. And what I found through all of these stories was that they started following a pattern, if you will. And I started calling them the universal truths because they started showing up in all of these stories. They're universal laws, if you will, in order to live your best life. And so that's what the book ended up becoming about, was pulling all of these connections to the most successful and thriving and highlighting those, because any of us can take these universal laws and apply them to our lives and uplift our lives so that we are living the very best life we possibly can. I really enjoyed that whole process. I wanted to replicate it. So I started the Career Wanderlust podcast. And Career Wanderlust is focused on talking about your career. And it's really just talking about the challenges you face in your career, how you ever overcome those, what's the best advice that you've had, what are the interesting stories that have happened to you, and when did you learn from them? And I'm just going to take all of those great insights, and that will be the next book coming out. Career
Oh, I love
Wanderlust.
that. I love that.
Yes.
That was going to be the last question about another book. So good. Tell us, since we're talking about thriving after 40, talk about some of the guests you've interviewed.
Oh, I've had so many great guests. And such interesting stories. From the woman who lost her husband at a very young age, with very young children. And, one thing that she shared with me that was just really powerful, because she was talking about how much she struggled and how much she hated Valentine's Day. And then one day she decided to turn it all around. And instead of feeling sorry for herself on Valentine's Day, she decided to create a day of love and instead write letters to every single person that supported her during her husband's illness and death, and turn it into this day of love. And she does that every now Valentine's Day. And I just, those little things of changing. Or Michael Stein, who Michael was someone who was, I don't know if you ever saw the Dirk Diggler movie, but his friend did this movie and he was cast in it. And he ended up loving the movie production process and started doing documentaries and short films. And he decided that he wanted to produce a full feature length film. And he wrote it, he shopped it around, was trying to get it produced. lots of red tape, lots of issues. Wasn't going to happen. So he decided one day, you know what? If this is going to happen, I'm going to have to do it myself.
Hmm.
And to be clear, at this point in time, Michael had $13 in his bank account, and he was thousands of dollars in debt when he decided that he was going to make this happen for himself. So he just decided that he was going to go and start something online. What I loved was we all have this imposter syndrome that we deal with. So many, I mean, really majority of us have imposter syndrome that we deal with, that feeling that you're not enough, that you're not good enough, that, who do you think you are to go out and try and do this type of thing? And Michael didn't let any of those feelings or thoughts stop him. He knew that hustle is blind and hard work anyone can do. So he picked an item, decided he's going to sell tarps on the internet. Started a company selling tarps on the internet, and within a year, he had made the money to create his feature length film. And through the process, this company's now like made over $100 million, supplied, maybe millions of tarps to homeless. And it's just really fascinating what can happen when you just decide to believe in yourself and go for it. So, and his story had lots of little things, like even through the process with his tarps. This is a commonality of successful people as well. Someone called, wanted to order, I don't know, something like some astronomical amount of tarps. Let's just say 1,000 for this sake. And he did not know where to get those tarps or how to get them, but he said yes. And then he went out and figured it out. He ended up driving across the country to get the tarps to deliver them in time, and really helped launch his business. And I've seen that this is a commonality in successful, thriving people. They will say yes, even if they're not fully ready, and they will figure out how to make it happen. And they will move forward, even though there might be doubt, even though they're not fully ready, even though there might be challenges. They still move forward.
You mentioned the imposter syndrome. Is that any age, or would you say it's, because ageism does, I'm 57 looking for a job, close to 58. I mean, it gets scarier as you climb that age ladder.
Yes, it does. And this is what is fascinating to me about imposter syndrome, and that I think is really important for everyone to know, because initially when I dealt with my own imposter syndrome, I actually thought that it was telling me something. Like I thought that voice was telling me something that it was right. And it was like trying to fill me in, if you will. I didn't think other people had this voice. I thought it was something that was just for me.
Hmm.
And what I've learned is that we all have this voice, that this is something that plagues human beings, that it actually comes from our caveman ancestors. It's a negative thought process that we are somewhat born with. And then we also develop over time through family, friends, media, all kinds of different issues through life. But it's incredibly normal. So this is the key to know. Imposter syndrome, it is normal. It is not correct. It is not right. It is not telling you a truth. It is simply there because, like I said, as our caveman days, it actually saved our lives to think negatively. If you were walking along and you saw a stick, it saved your life to think it was a snake. It saved your life to withdraw, to try to blend in, to not stand out, to not do anything scary or different. This mindset saved your life, but now it's no longer the case. It actually hurts you. It keeps you from experiencing everything in life. And so it's important to understand that that is it. It is simply a normal thought process, and you don't need to listen to it. You need to learn how to work with it and move forward with it anyway. So it's really like it's like learning how to walk with your fear, if you will. You need to walk alongside of it instead of behind it. And that's what I have found has been incredibly powerful, because even when you deal with your imposter syndrome and you feel great and doing well, when you expand yourself and you start doing something new, which is really what we want to be doing, we always want to be expanding and learning and growing. Well, anytime you do that, anytime you step into something that's unfamiliar, you're going to have that sense of imposter syndrome or that sense of uncomfortability, because it's new. Anything that is new is unfamiliar and feels uncomfortable. So it's just a matter of continuing to walk forward, continuing to walk with it until it becomes comfortable. I mean, it's that fake it until you make it. It has a lot of
Yeah,
truth to it. And
it is true. Well, in Thriving After 40 in the podcast, you talk about what it takes to have a successful and fulfilling life. Um, what are some of the common, what did you call it? The common laws? What did you,
universal laws. Yes.
universal laws?
Universal
Yeah.
laws. Yeah.
What are
So
some of those universal laws that you've heard from the many stories?
I would love to share with you some of these. Here's some of the top ones I would say. Number one, defining success for yourself. This is really, really important. You need to know what success means to you, because so many people out there are living somebody else's definition of success. They have, maybe in their teenage years, they picked a path that they were going to go down. They're like, this sounds good. This sounds about right. They go to school, they get through school, maybe they get married, maybe they have kids, they've got this job, things are just coming at them, and life is reacting. It's reacting, it's reacting, reacting. But they're not really taking the time to think about, is this still what I want? What is it that I really want? And what I want right now, is that based on my family? Is that based on what my parents wanted? Is that based on my culture? Is that based on my kids? Is that my spouse? Or is that based on me? And that's really important thing. And this is what I learned, is that a lot of people have really horrible situations happen, and it's like the universe strips away everything from their life, because all these really big challenges and horrible things. And that's when they figure it out. That's kind of like their starting point for so many of these
Mhm.
stories. And what I realized is, it's not because the challenges came and stripped away. It's because what stripped away, it left them with time where they had to think about it, where they had to like have that come to Jesus moment with themselves, and really get in touch with, what is it that I want? Me, what is my definition of success? What does that vision look like? And once they do, that's the catalyst, because once you have that vision, you can reverse engineer it. You can start taking those baby steps. You can start creating what it is that you really want. And so that's number one, most important. Mindset, adopting a positive mindset. This is also really important. It goes back to the imposter syndrome. I was talking about negative mindset. When we continue with these negative mindset, it creates grooves in our brains that actually keeps us thinking negatively. But when we combat that, because our minds are we have neuroplasticity in our minds, we can change the way our minds work. When we bring attention to that and actually actively try to cultivate a positive mindset, this is so powerful for living your most successful, thriving life. And you can do that simply by bringing awareness to whenever you're having these negative thoughts.
Mhm.
You notice it, you don't judge it. You're like, oh, there it is. It's normal. And then you change it. You pick the opposite thought, the most positive one, and you force the picture. You force it. And you have to do it over and over and over again. It is a process. Um, Overcoming imposter syndrome is a very big one, because if you let imposter syndrome take you down, I mean, you're not going to go anywhere if you let your imposter syndrome
Right.
have the voice.
Yeah.
Following passion, finding your joy. Wow, this is a big one. This is really, really important. And even though, while we all would love to work in our passion, I know that's not possible for everybody.
Mhm.
But if you can't
I mean,
work
you
in
just
your
think of actors alone. How many actors, people who want to have a career in the arts,
exactly,
and it's very small percentage who really
a very small percentage.
who
But if that's
succeed in
what
that.
you love and that's your joy, then you should do it anyway.
Right.
Find the local community,
I agree. Yeah.
the theater aspects. I mean, there are improv groups. There's so many different groups, and it's vital that we bring this into our lives, whether it be for work or for fun. And what I found is that even a even if it's not for your work, if you have that passion and joy in your personal life, it is actually going to benefit your career, because when you are having that joy and doing well in your life, that actually up levels your career. That it carries forth. But B, it's amazing what happens. I mean, there are so many story after story of people just doing their passion or joy on the side because it's what they love. It's what they wanted to do. And then it turns into something else. Like Mark Stansel was someone who had a technical job. He was great at his technical job, but he was really missing that creative aspect, and he loved to write. And so he decided to join a group after hours, and on weekends they would meet and they would write. And they just had a really great time writing together, and they'd share with each other. And they wanted to get their screenplays picked up, but they didn't really live in California or New York. They didn't live in a place where it's easy to meet people. So his group started just talking to each other, brainstorming ideas, and they decided to create comics and digital art based on their stories, just to like try to get some attention. So they start doing this and it starts getting attention, and then people start calling them to have them help them with their digital art and their different things. And basically this group of people who were friends just enjoying this passion together on the weekends and evenings they all ended up quitting their jobs, starting a company. And now they have a company that does this for corporations and people all over the US for projects. And basically what he was doing for fun, he's now getting paid to do. And I could tell you story after story of people who have done this by simply just going out and doing what they love. So you never know where things can lead.
Well, it's kind of the show. I love doing this. I didn't expect to be doing this. I feel like, I'm putting it out into the world, and, hopefully someday it makes, it might be the thing that I could do as my career.
And, and that like leads to one of the other big ones, which in my book is something that we talk about from your story, helping others. This is a catalyst to either when you're doing really, really well and it'll take you to the next level, or if you're really, really struggling and you don't know how to get out, this is what brings you out. And it is changing your focus from how can I help myself to how can I help others. And that is a beautiful pivotal moment in so many stories where it takes them, like I said, it just skyrockets forward. So asking yourself that, and that was something that we talked about with your story, and how beautiful that is.
What did you, or when did you realize, doing the podcast, that you had a book in you? Well, was there a story, or was it the culmination of, all of them that you just started to think?
Well, I actually had started the podcast because I wanted to write a book. I wanted to write a book about ageism. And when I realized how many interviews it would take, and it wouldn't finish until closer to the end of the pandemic, I wouldn't help people during the pandemic. So I decided to make it a podcast so people could listen to the stories and get that inspiration during the pandemic. And it morphed. It morphed, and it was a combination of story after story, because what I would do after I would interview the people, I would re-listen to it, I would take notes, and I would write this ending, of like, what can we learn from this story? What are our takeaways? How can we apply this to our own lives? And so each interview has an ending of, anywhere from like 5 to 20 minutes of what can we learn from this story? And it was that process that started making everything stick inside of me. It was like, it made lessons sticky, if you will. And I could see the pattern so clear. It was so clear that it came out that it was like, this is what the book is about. This is what the book has to be about. So the book morphed because of how these stories came along. And it was to me, it was like speaking to me. The book chose itself.
So the fact that it was speaking to you, did that make it easier to put it together and to write it?
Yes, well, and especially because I was doing those endings. So I have, for every interview, I have 5 to 15 pages of a wrap up, of the story. And so what I was able to do was to go through all of these stories, pick up these wrap ups, and look at these highlights, and then just put the chapter highlights, and then put these stories in, just kind of categorize them in, and then put it all together, make it work and make it smooth and highlight. So everything has a lot of stories, and not only a lot of stories, but a lot of action points. Every chapter has all these questions to ask yourself, action points to take and move forward with. And it's very, very helpful. I went through a point of struggle after the book was published, and I'm not gonna lie, I ended up picking up my book and I started reading. I was like, oh, this is really helpful. I really need it. Thank you.
Well, if it helps the author, that's a good deal.
Well, it's all the best advice from all these people, so.
Jolie, thank you so much. Have you started to put the other podcast, the Career Wonderlist book together?
Not yet. I'm going to start that. In fact, I think I'll start that probably January. I want to get in more conversations. I've had probably about 40 to 50 at this point. So I'm going to get in some more, and then I'm going to start that book in January, and it'll come out next year.
Well, that's awesome. As we said backstage, and he can hear us now, Jeremy Murphy, I'll make an introduction after we're done today.
I would love that. I would love that.
You got it. Thank you so much, Jolie.
Thank you, Alan. It was wonderful. Have a great day.
Yeah, pleasure to have you. Thriving After 40 is available right now. Bye-bye, Jolie.
Good.
And now my next guest, Jeremy Murphy. Uncover the behind-the-scenes stories of the celebrity world with author Jeremy Murphy in his new book, Too Good to Fact Check, Flying the Skies with Stars, Scotch, and Scandal. Mostly his, with humorous anecdotes from his decade as editor of a glossy magazine, Watch Magazine. Jeremy and co-writer Sophia Paulmier provide a hilarious and candid look at the glamorous and chaotic world of celebrity culture. Prepare yourself for a guilty pleasure of confessions, apologies, and outrageous escapades with stars like LL Cool J and Harrison Ford, to name a small few. Please help me welcome my friend Jeremy Murphy to the locker room.
Hello,
sir. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. It has been a while.
It has been. It has been. And by the way, before we start, I'm sure people watching know who you are. And when I was at CBS, I got to work with you, and you ran the best shop in the business. I mean, it was such a pleasure. Anytime we had Alan Talent, everything went great.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, we're gonna talk about Alan Talent later. You are also the author of the critically acclaimed F Off Chloe, or Fuck Off Chloe, about the culture clash between young and old in the workplace, which you wrote during the pandemic and released in March of 2022. What surprised you most about writing and releasing your first book?
How hard it is, and how much effort you put into it. When you have a small publisher like I did, you wind up doing a lot of it yourself. So I wind up doing the PR myself, doing the party myself, planning the photo shoot, like sending out all the mailings myself. And it was exhausting. It was really exhausting. And I really didn't want to do it again. I didn't think I was going to do it again. And then this opportunity came and I was like, oh, okay. I forgot how hard it was. And now I'm reminded how hard it was.
Well, that's funny. You said that you were flattered and stunned that a second I think it's a second publisher. Is it the same?
No, it's a second publisher. Simon Schuster's distributing it, but it's a second publisher.
Yeah. So you stunned, that they wanted to put your insane story to paper, which chronicles 10 years of traveling as with celebrities as the editor of CBS's Watch Magazine. How did the publisher come? How did the idea for this come?
Well, so, after the first book, I thought it was one and done because I didn't want to do it again. And 9 months later, people started asking me, hey, what's next? As if I'm an author. And I'm like, I'm not an author. This was like a fluke. And people reminded me I had all these great stories that I would tell in bars and restaurants, war stories. And I'm Irish. I'm a raconteur. I love, holding court and everything. And they said that would be a really good book. And a colleague of mine connected me to Post Hill Press, and they loved the idea of like little vignettes of my experiences with stars traveling around the world. And so that's kind of how it happened.
That's incredible. I mean, which really speaks to just talking to other people, like you shared your stories, and somebody's like, oh, that'd make a really good book.
Well, I am the scorn of every struggling writer because both my books, they kind of just happened. I didn't have an agent. I didn't have to do a proposal. So there are struggling writers who despise me because mine too happened by accident. And I feel for them because, it's hard, but I got very lucky.
Well, you co-wrote this with Sophia. What was it like having someone to work with, for this process, which was different than the first one?
It was hard. It was necessary though, because when I started it, I thought it was just going to be little, vignettes of my experiences with celebrities. And when I was doing it, I found it a little empty. there wasn't really a thread. There wasn't a human connection to it. And Sophia is a writer, young writer, who I met ironically at a restaurant, and we became friends. And I said, "Would you be interested in this?" And the whole idea was for her to ask me questions and jog the memory. And she asked such great questions. I said, "I really want your voice in this." So after every chapter, there are a Q&A with her. And it really helped because it created the thread. And I actually began to see the narrative of it was about the celebrities, but it was about my journey of doing this for 10 years and all the crazy stuff I did. And remembering a lot of this, I was the worst behaved of anybody. Like I kind of went wild. The celebrities were the good behaved people, which is the irony of the book.
That is definitely, I don't think people would necessarily expect that. Well, it chronicles travels, from New York to Los Angeles to London, Milan, Paris. Favorite location you've ever done a shoot in?
Oh, I mean, I loved going to London and Paris. I absolutely loved it. But it sounds very glamorous, but this too. When you're on, when you're traveling for work, you really don't leave the hotel. Mm-hmm. We would be in, because we would shoot mainly in hotels because, they were providing the glamorous backdrop. And so a lot of times you would be in the hotel for 3 and 4 days. And so that was, I mean, granted, they were nice hotels, which was not a bad thing. But yeah, I mean, I got to go all over the world. We did something in Bora Bora and Shanghai and Sydney. And it was fantastic. It was really a lot of fun. But London and Paris are my 2 favorites.
Best hotel?
The Plaza Athénée in Paris.
Okay.
It's Devil Wears Prada was filmed there. Sex and the City, Emily in Paris. It's very, very cosmopolitan. It's very glamorous. It's right on Avenue Montaigne, right across from Christian Dior, and you cannot help but feel a celebrity when you're there. It's just so glamorous. And we wound up doing, I think we shot 5 covers there.
Wow.
Yeah. They liked us for some reason.
Favorite cover of those?
Yeah, so we did. Cody DePablo from NCIS. We shot her in 2012, and it was the very first time that we got a designer to let us shoot their collection in advance. So Christian Dior, their fall collection was coming out in September. We got to shoot it in May. And we shot at the Plaza Athénée, and it was just fantastic. And actors, one of the things, and this very well, actors are not models; they're not sample size, but the wardrobe was. And so I was very, 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 very nervous that Cody wouldn't be able to fit in it because the samples are usually like a 0 to a 2, and very few TV stars are that small. She fit everything beautifully. But there's a funny story that went along with it. One of the photographers, he wanted a shot with her surrounded by these good-looking men going down the avenue, like bodyguards. But we hadn't cast that yet. So, and it was a Sunday. So the photographer's like, can you find, models?
Go to the street?
Well, my joke is Parisians don't like to work on weekdays. They're certainly going to work on weekends. And so I wound up taking the bellhop from the Plaza Athénée, going down the Champs-Élysées to the Abercrombie and Fitch store, and asking the manager if we could borrow some of their, employees, because those assholes like to be photographed anyways. So I was like, this is easy. But then I realized, wow, this looks really sketchy. I'm like, saying, we'll pay in cash, and I've got a guy in a bellhop uniform behind me. I mean, it was so farcical.
Abercrombie's the right place to go. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely, for sure. In the book, you recreate events from your decade, with detailed apologies, endearing moments, working with LL Cool J, Neil Patrick, Juliana Margulies, Harrison Ford, Christine Baranski. And I love that you say you were a hellraiser. What's your most hell-raising moment you feature in the book?
Well, it's not my proudest moment, but so in 2013, I had gone to London to look for new places to shoot. And I wound up going to this private members club with somebody. And I'm very modest and very shy when I'm around like really cool people. And so I kind of had some liquid courage. Let's just say that. And then
I've
I
been
got,
there. I think I understand that.
yep. And then I got confident and I invited all these strangers back to my hotel because I had this really nice suite and there were some quasi celebrities. And the next morning I woke up not remembering anything and we set the room on fire.
Oh God.
The drapes were completely charred and I had people passed out on my floor. I had no idea who they were. And so I'm like kicking everybody out. I'm trying to clean, and the drapes. I'm literally tying them back, like, oh, housekeeping won't notice. And so I was mortally embarrassed. And then a friend of mine thought it was the funniest thing in the world, and he said, Jeremy, come on, the Stones, Ozzy, the Beatles, Murphy, like you, like. And so to this day, there's a lifetime ban on me on that hotel.
I can understand,
Yeah.
if you almost burned down a hotel.
Yeah.
Was there a celebrity you worked with who surprised you the most for whatever reason?
Yeah. I mean, Juliana Margulies was just phenomenal. I mean, she was just so beautiful and friendly. And not that it was surprising, but, she was the star of the show and we worked for years together. And, she was leading the show. She had a new child. She was in every scene. So it was very hard. She really, really valued her personal time. And so finally we got her and it was worth the wait. She was fantastic. Harrison Ford was an asshole. I'm just going to say it. I thought that would be so cool. And he was so grumpy and just mean spirited. And
I can believe that one.
That was kind of disappointing. First of all, he went to the wrong hotel. We were shooting at the Beverly Wilshire and he went to the Beverly Hilton. And to this day, I can picture him, going up to what we thought was the styling suite, knocking on the door. And then, Jim and Susie Suburb open the door expecting, Eggs Benedict. And there's Indiana Jones. So that makes me laugh. But he was just a pill. Lucy Liu was kind of a wet blanket. So you never know, what you're going to get. Like the cast of The Good Wife, they were the best. The daytime actors were always awesome.
Absolutely. Is there any story that you considered not putting in?
Yeah, and I'll share it. So in 2007, I went down to New Orleans because we were doing a story on how media covered Hurricane Katrina. And, the general manager of the CBS station, WWL, took us on all around the Ninth Ward and showed us everything. And we had heard that Brad Pitt and Angelina had created an organization called Make It Right. And they were building homes. Right. They were building homes for the displaced people. And so I came back and I thought, we got to support this. So I went to all the divisions and, everyone donated PSA time. Everybody donated PSA time and, millions of dollars in like local, national, radio. And so they were thrilled. And then the next day I got a call and they declined the offer because Brad's manager at the time hated someone at my company. And so they didn't want to give us a win. And I found out later that Brad and Angelina had no idea that this manager decided to just do it on their own. And so I think they would have been furious because, it would have really given their organization some really good exposure.
I say that so many times throughout the years of working in PR of, the talent probably never, ever hearing of the opportunity and really having their say in that yes or no answer.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate for them. But, I respect talent who tells their folks that they want to know everything.
Right.
And they make that decision themselves, right?
Exactly.
So true. Well, as you said, you covered and featured our folks. You did a wedding shoot, I remember, with Crystal Chappelle, Emmy Ryland, and Gina Tognoni.
Yes.
Who were some of the other daytime that because I'm sure you did Young and the Restless and Bold and the Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, we did As the World Turns. We took some of your actors down to Washington, D.C., and we recreated inauguration photos.
I was going to say, I think that's Terry Kahn.
Terry and Austin.
Right.
Eva DeCruz and Dylan Bruce. and it was just fabulous. And it actually got on the front page of the style section in the Washington Post because it was a novel idea. We had George Washington. Wait, we recreated George and Martha Washington. We imagined what their inauguration night was. We had photos of JFK and Jackie, Ron and Nancy, Bill and Hillary, and the actors just posed as them, and it was fantastic. They did such a good job.
I love that. I did remember that it was Terry for sure.
And then we did for As the World Turns People at FAO Schwartz. I think Jennifer Landon was in that.
Yes, and Jesse Lee Suffer.
Yep.
Yes. I remember.
And we got them dancing on the piano, like in big, like yeah. We did some Young and the Restless Stars. But we were in New York. Your shows were in New York, and you just had the best. Like, I mean, your team, like Joanna Bradford, and you, and
wow, good memory.
Right? I mean, you guys, everything. I knew when we were working with you. Everybody would show up on time. Everybody. A lot of times actors come and they didn't even know what they're doing.
Yeah.
You had these people briefed. They knew exactly. They knew the call time. They knew everything. So it was a joy, and that's why a lot of it we did with Guiding Light and As the World Turns, because it was just too easy. You made it too easy for us.
Well, that's good. I like that. Santa Barbara, your favorite show, just celebrated its 40th anniversary.
I know. And they had that big event in Burbank, and I didn't get to go.
Who would you have wanted to see that you've never met? Is there?
I had the great fortune of meeting a lot of them. Because when I was a teenager, I had my own little entertainment magazine. And the PR woman from Santa Barbara was a woman named Mary Anderson. And she thought it was very cool. And so she would invite me to the parties when I was in high school. Wow. So I got to go to, like, every year they had the pre-Emmy party at the Beekman Tower Hotel at the top. And so I got to meet A. Martinez and Marcy Walker and Robin Mattson. And so I had the great fortune of meeting a lot of them. I really wanted to go this year, but I've been doing press for my book because Marcy Walker showed up.
I know.
And she has been kind of missing.
Yeah.
She kind of disappeared, and I have a lot of respect for her because I know she got involved in her community and in the church, and she kind of like really focused her efforts on that, which I think is fantastic. But she kind of disappeared from kind of like a Greta Garbo act, right?
Yeah. I tried to when I interviewed A. Martinez, we tried to find her, A and I.
Yeah.
So the video of them reuniting was beautiful. You have a couple of series in the works. Are you able to tell us anything about them?
We're doing a TV treatment for Fuck Off Chloe. My producer friend Faith Zuckerman and I are adapting that. I have another one called House of Medici that James Brolin, the actor, is a producer on. Him and his manager Scott Hart are behind that. And then
what is that about?
It is it's kind of a anthology. It's about a family that learns that they are part of the Medici heritage, and they are heirs to all these billions of dollars in hidden art and jewels and money, but people don't want them to have it. So it's kind of like it's a crime thriller. It's a saga. It's rooted in history. I did a lot of research on it. So so those are the ones that are kind of have the most momentum.
That's awesome. Before I let you go, is there a third book on the horizon?
Oh God. I said no after the first one. So I don't know. Like, I'm going to need some time to recover from this one. But who knows? In 9 months, someone might ask me, "Hey, what's next?" But it's interesting. Like, I still don't think of myself as an author. I'm a PR guy, and one of the hardest things about writing this new one is, and this, when we do PR, we're promoting other people. And so, I started as a newspaper reporter writing about other people. Then I was a magazine editor, featuring other people. And then I went into PR promoting other people. So writing about me was definitely an experience, and it's not something I want to do again.
I get it. I mean, hosting the show is, I'm getting pitched where I used to be the pitcher, like
Right.
it's wild. Jeremy, always great to see you. The book
Thank
is
you.
out on Tuesday, correct?
Yes, it is.
Too good to fact check. You can go to amazon.com or barnesandnoble.com and pick up a copy today. Thanks so much, my friend.
Thank you. Take care.
You got it. Up next, please, 3-time Emmy Award winner Sarah Cody discovers Connecticut like never before, where she takes you on a journey through her new book around every corner of Connecticut. With over 25 years of experience as a travel reporter, Sarah shares her favorite hidden gems, from majestic bald eagles to unique trails like the Dinosaur Trail. This beautifully photographed guide reveals Connecticut's vibrant tourism scene and offers insider tips for exploring the state's most charming spots. Please welcome Sarah Cody to the locker room.
Hey, Alan.
Hi, Sarah. So good to see you.
Hands. It's so nice to see you. You've been one of my favorite people.
Thank you. Back at you. It's so funny how the roles reverse. So I'm so excited we can do this.
I know. I don't even know. How long do you think we've known each other? 15 years, maybe?
I mean, I was on location tours for 10 years. I started in 2010. So it's close to probably. Yeah. It's very close to 15. Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Good to see you here in the locker room.
Well, your love of Connecticut first began when you were a college student. Tell us where you went and what did you first fall in love with in Connecticut?
Oh, wow. So I went to Trinity College in Hartford.
Did you grow up in Connecticut?
Nope. I grew up in Massachusetts, in Concord, Massachusetts, which is a very historic place with the North Bridge, with Walden Pond, where Thoreau was. I worked at the Orchard House, which was where Louisa May Alcott wrote Little Women. So I came from a very historic background, went to Trinity, which is a beautiful small school in Hartford. Really, really loved it. And kind of from then on, jumped back and forth from Boston, Massachusetts to Connecticut till I landed here with the Fox station in the late 90s. And what did I fall in love with about Connecticut? Connecticut to me, it's a small, attainable state. Like reporting on it, how I've really gotten to know every corner of it.
I was gonna say, yeah.
And in terms of Connecticut, like I love the shore. I think our shore is just amazing, and we sort of have it all. We have these beautiful beaches and boat trips, and then the Litchfield Hills, and we've got some great cities. I love New Haven, so it's a neat place.
Well, like you said, you've been reporting for WTNH TV8 for 25 years, highlighting the state's vibrant tourism scene. How did your career in journalism begin?
Well, I was actually, just to correct you a little bit, I was at the Fox station for 18 years, and I've been at the ABC station for about the last 7. I really kind of, when I go and talk to students, I talk to them often about finding focus. And I know some people are sort of wanderers and on a journey, and that's great for some people. For me, like I needed to find some focus and sort of zone in on what I wanted to do. And I think it's helpful for some people. And so I decided in college that I was interested in politics. I was interested in acting and public speaking. I was interested in the law. Like it all kind of came together for me in TV news. So I got internships while I was in college, and I also advised students to do that. I worked at the CBS affiliate in Hartford while I was in school, and then the NBC affiliate in Boston during the summers. And that just led right into a job when I graduated. It was like an entry-level $8 an hour on the overnight shift job. But in TV news, it's like you do that, you get in and you work and you meet people and you do all that sort of grunt work that you have to do to prove yourself. And things moved pretty quickly. I moved up there in Boston, which was a big, exciting station.
Big market. I mean, Oprah started in Baltimore, Oprah started in Baltimore. I mean, the same for me. I was a page for ABC and it opened every door, and then I did internships. But did you study journalism?
No, Trinity was a small liberal arts college. So I had an English literature major and a performing arts minor. So I kind of tried to make it my own with writing and performing. So that's kind of how I worked that.
It's fantastic. Covering the state for as long as you have and seeing every inch as you described it, when did the idea for Around Every Corner come to you, like to put it into a book?
It's always been kind of a bucket list goal of mine to write a book. And over the years, I am proud of my career in terms of, I didn't really get stuck in just TV. And some of that was being a mom. I diversified a little bit to work flexibly when my boys were young. But I also wrote for the Hartford Courant, which was the oldest continuously published newspaper in the country. And I wrote for Hartford Magazine and New Haven Magazine. So I'd done quite a bit of non-TV writing. And so I always had it in my head that when the time was right, I wanted to write a book. And I dedicated the book to my dad, who I lost in 2019, but he was definitely someone that I would share that dream with. And he was like, you got to do it. You got to write that book, Sarah. So I think, when this all sort of unfurled, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, my boys were bigger. The first one was heading off to college. The second one was thinking about it. It just seemed time for me to do this. And the tourism angle, there's a couple of different books on my mind, to be perfectly honest. And the tourism angle was the first, I thought, for my first book. I knew so much about it. Like I thought I could do it like the back of my hand. You know what I mean? So I thought it was the right place to start and get my feet wet. It really was. It was I pulled it together in probably about 9 months, which I think is pretty quick for a book. And like I said, I'd done a fair amount of tourism reporting for magazines and newspapers. So it was kind of what I'd done before, just over and over and over, 100 times what I'd done before. And even knowing the state the way I knew it before I embarked on the book, I had to hit a certain amount of words. Like it had to be long. So I went looking and found new places too. And that's been really fun as well.
Oh, I love that. Did you find the process easy, fun, hard, or was there a certain part that was hard?
I found it all to be pretty comfortable and pretty what I was used to, just again, on a much larger scale. I think something that was fun for me was, working in TV. I've always worked with a photographer, but with some of my magazine and newspaper work, I did provide my own photographs, and I love to photograph my family, my kids as they grew up. So about 75% of the photos in the book were taken by me. So that was fun. Yeah. So that was a sort of a fun full circle thing for me that I hadn't totally done before.
Where did your love of photography start?
With my kids, I guess. I mean, I always liked it, but just, filming their smiles and their milestones and their growth, it's always meant so much to me.
That's awesome. I mean, photography is my thing as well.
Yeah. What do you love about
it? I really got a camera for my bar mitzvah at 13. And I've really documented my entire life.
Yeah.
And being able to share those memories with people and family and friends. And, I just was best man in a wedding this past weekend, and I already, shared those photos with the grooms, and the one of them said, "Is this your photo?" And I said, "Yes," and said, "It's my favorite photo from the wedding." And I get that a lot, and it's nice, it is really, I think, you have this of your boys, that it's their lives, and they will be able to share. They will be able to share that legacy with their families. There's just something, I think, magical about having them. And now being able to, living in New York City, I was able to digitize everything. So I can pull up anything from my life in a second.
I think, your story about your friend, it's a real effort and it's a real connection, and photography shows love. You're putting time into it, but what you capture shows the love between the two, don't you think?
Totally.
And once you lose somebody that meant a lot to you, like going back and seeing the pictures of my dad with my boys, and it's priceless.
Yes. And being able to pull that, I've been the one to pull a montage together when somebody, even my own family, passes.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I did something, I lost a cousin, 62, to pancreatic cancer.
Ugh.
And they had asked me, her daughters and her sister, to put it together. And I put it together before she passed, because we knew she was, and she wanted to watch it, and she watched it.
What an amazing experience.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, yeah. So keep doing it. And I'm so glad you said 75% are yours.
Yeah.
That's what a added bonus to the project, right?
Yeah. Yeah. To me, it was very fulfilling.
Yeah.
The other 25% were, I don't know if you noticed, but I split the book into seasons. It was kind of like if I couldn't get somewhere when that particular, it was just sort of like I couldn't be everywhere all at once, but most of them are mine.
Well, in the book, you don't just feature state parks, attractions, and museums. You do go off the beaten path. What are some of the, your favorite off the beaten paths that Connecticut has to offer?
I'd say 3 places jump out at me. There's a place in East Granby, Connecticut called Old Newgate Prison. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's a really fascinating place, and it was closed for about 10 years while they revamped it, the state. And so I really didn't ever go there. That was kind of the heart of my tourism career prior. So I went there for this book. I brought my 17-year-old son, who, a 17-year-old young man can be hard to engage on like a day trip with mom.
Yeah.
But not the Old Newgate Prison. He thought it was really cool. So it's one of the first prisons and first copper mines in the country. So you get there and you kind of see sort of what you would expect from a prison yard, some walls, some buildings. But what the real highlight is that you go down on a tour into the copper mine, and they kept the prisoners in the copper mine. So you see chains. You go 75 feet underground. You do a 100-yard loop where it's dark and it's wet and it's damp. And it's just a really unique, Connecticut's got it. You don't see this kind of a place everywhere. Really unique experience. And they do, even though it's kind of romanticized with stories about prison escapes and things like that, they do really try to make you think, hey, this isn't just a cool experience to go into a mine. It was inhumane conditions that these men were kept in, and some of them were as young as 14. And they do try to relate it to incarceration today. So it's a really neat spot. And I've been talking about that a lot.
Something you'd see in, going to Europe somewhere,
right.
like really like an archaeology,
yeah.
something hard.
I don't think everyone knows it's there. And it's really a really unique and interesting place. And then another place that my dad, ironically, had told me about for years. Have you been to Weir Farm, Sarah? Have you been to Weir Farm? I have a client whose child is working on the restoration of Weir Farm. I really think you need to get there. And at the time, I was busy with 2 little boys and working, and Weir Farm is down somewhat far away from me towards New York City and Wilton. But for the book, I got to Weir Farm, and it's an amazing place. It's the only national park dedicated to the art of Impressionist painting. And it was the home of J. Alden Weir in the late 1800s. And you get to take a tour of his home. You get to see 2 studios just set up with all of these amazing paintings and, art artifacts, just as if they were there. You get to walk the artscape, where you take a map and you can see famous paintings that were painted in certain spots on this beautiful property. And you can go and stand in that spot and see the light and see how the artist interpreted it. There's hiking trails, there's gardens. If you want like a peaceful, relaxing experience that's super interesting, go to Weir Farm. I'm a fan.
That, like, for an art school, sounds like an incredible trip.
Yeah. So they also, totally for an art school, but also they have backpacks filled with art supplies sitting on the porch that you can borrow and go out and just make something on the fly if you want to. And they also have replicas of his work that you can touch, so that you get the real understanding of Impressionism painting layer upon layer, and those brush strokes that you can see, so they really do try to make it very user-friendly and interesting. And it is.
What a great thing too, for just even like if you're young, boys or people with children who know their child likes to paint or art, just take that backpack out. I love that.
Yeah. And then I don't know, do we have time for a third place?
Yeah.
I sort of fell in love with Faulkner's Island while writing this book. So there's a beautiful town in Connecticut called Guilford. Do you know it?
I've heard of Guilford.
It's on the shoreline. It's near Madison. If you go to through town and to the shore in Guilford, you can see an island off the coast. And for many, many years, I'd seen that island off the coast, Faulkner's Island. And I said, it's like one of my goals to get onto Faulkner's Island for this book. There's a lighthouse. You can see a lighthouse there. And the folks had not done a tour out there since 2007. And they did a tour last year that I was able to get on. And it's just a fascinating place. It's kind of an island that rises. It's almost a little bit, it looks like a bubble almost, like kind of rises up out of the water. And there were seals out there. You could go into the lighthouse and see it. It's very hard to get onto because of the currents and the wind. It's 3 miles offshore. So for the book, I was able to get pictures of Faulkner's Island, and I recently called them, and they're not going out this year with the public. So it's not that easy to get out there. So if anyone wants to learn about it and see some pictures, experience Faulkner's Island, they can do it.
Pick up the book. You talk about that you always liked taking your boys around Connecticut and showing them. Did they grow up having a favorite spot to go to that you went to as a family?
So it's funny, I'm finishing the summer with them now, and one's going to college for the first time, and one's going to a semester abroad. He's a junior in college. So it was like a really different summer this time around. But our summers when they were like 8 and 10, we would call it Camp Mom. We would go on a different outing every week. We loved the Maritime Aquarium in Norwalk. It's got a big shark tank. They always got a huge kick out of that. The dinosaur place in Montville, you take this hike through the woods and you see animatronic dinosaurs. And they also had this huge playscape and a water park. They loved that. Ocean Beach. They loved Ocean Beach where there are water slides and an Olympic-sized pool and ice cream and rides. And oh my gosh, Alan, we used to do all that stuff. We would get our history on and go to Mystic Seaport. I love Mystic Seaport. They have a great little children's museum and a planetarium. So yeah, I used to write about all the time. I would take them, and it was fun.
You definitely have a passion for history. Do they?
Oh, that's a good question. I was on a radio show recently, and I mentioned how many historical places I put in the book. And he was kind of like, the DJ was kind of like, why? And I was like, well, because I guess I find it interesting. Yeah. The boys find it interesting. Probably not as much as Mom. Okay. But I hope so. I hope so.
One going off to do something, is one of my biggest regrets, not studying abroad. What country?
He's going to Spain. And I went to Italy when I was a junior in college. And so somebody recently asked him why he's going. And he's like, because I've had this woman in my life for my whole life telling me I should go abroad. I was like, yeah.
Oh my God, that is
such a pivotal experience for me.
I bet. I mean, there are things that our parents do say. I don't know why I didn't. I mean, I just didn't. But he'll be very grateful that Mom forced it.
Yeah, pretty much. And we're going to go visit him on Thanksgiving, and I've never been to Madrid, so I'm looking forward to a little.
I went in '95. I loved Spain, but I'd like to go back. I just don't remember a lot, and we were young, and so it's a place I definitely want to return. You said you have other books in you. Do you know what the next one might be?
I don't for sure. I could always do more like this. Like this book is doing pretty well. So I could do Around Every Corner, Cape Cod or Massachusetts or Rhode Island. That's on my mind. Some kind of memoir has always been on my mind. And I also, in addition to reporting on all kinds of interesting places, I've reported over the years on all sorts of interesting people. So I think it would be interesting to share some of those stories in a book. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. But writing a book, I don't know if your other authors tell you, it's a lot of work. It's like, it's the year of writing and then it's the year of marketing it. And that's where I'm at right now. So
I've had people who watch The Locker Room say I should write a book, but that's scary as anything. Scary as anything.
It's just a big project. You expect that if you want to do it, do it. It's a lot of work. Just know that. Yeah.
Well, the previous author I thought was interesting because he said, he had a co-writer, and so what she helped with was by helping to ask questions to jog his memory. And I think that's what I would need, is because I've done a lot in my years, and that joggled in there. So figuring it all out and remembering it. Connecticut is around every corner. Besides that state, where are some of your favorite places to travel to?
Oh, that's a good question. I love Italy. I spent that semester there, and I've taken my family back.
Where did you?
I was in Florence, but I've taken my family back to Rome, Pompeii, and Capri. I love Cape Cod and Nantucket here locally. We try to get there every summer because it's a special place to me.
I've never done Nantucket. I mean, I've gone Provincetown.
You get to do Nantucket.
I know. I've heard that for decades, but Provincetown is one of my favorite.
P-Town is great.
Yeah. And in Europe, it's Italy for sure.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to Spain. I've never been there.
Will you travel outside Madrid?
I think we're going to try Barcelona as well.
Yeah.
And I haven't gotten back to Europe too much since I spent that semester abroad. I've been with the family to Italy, and I would love to get back to London and Paris. It's on the bucket list.
Love both of those. Before I let you go, the boys, do you think they'll follow in mom's footsteps?
So they have already a little bit, but I think they'll end up doing other things. But my older son had a blog and a podcast for a while. So he was kind of doing the media thing along with me. And I had a podcast for a while. So we would compare notes. We shared a microphone for a while. It was cute. And then my second son wrote a book last summer. It was a graphic novel, and he self-published it. So yes, they both dabbled in mom's interests. And I was proud of that.
That's incredible to write a book at that age.
Yeah, he did a really nice job.
You've taught them well already.
I hope so. I think so.
Sarah, such a pleasure. So great to see you. Congratulations on Around Every Corner in Connecticut. You can pick up the book on Amazon.com. You have a great weekend.
Thanks so much. It was great to see you. Thanks for having me on.
You too. My pleasure. Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you to Jolie Downs, Jeremy Murphy, and Sarah Cody for spending this hour with us. Thriving After 40, Too Good to Fact Check, and Around Every Corner are available now at Amazon.com. Please join me next Wednesday, August 28th, when Debbie Matenopoulos and Andy Page join me live. We'll dive into their impressive careers, their current appearances on General Hospital, and then a unique collaboration between Knocking and the show that's bringing Port Charles into the home of fans like never before. If you haven't yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, you can do so down below. Turn on the notifications for reminders of all upcoming shows. And if you like to stream audio versions, just search The Locker Room on your favorite podcast app. I hope you all have a great weekend. I will see you next Wednesday. And then on Thursday, August 29th, Melanie Smith from As the World Turns will join me live. Her new album is out on Friday the 30th, and she's coming on to talk about that. So have a great weekend, everybody. I'll see you next week.